We're two sisters who believe that the purpose of life is to enjoy, create, and have fun. We believe that as humans, we can have anything we want, and things are always working out for us. Experience has taught us that the path to getting everything we want begins with ease. If you believe in miracles and happily ever after, or even if you just want to, then this is the podcast for you. Hi there, I'm your host, Kayla Rain.
I'm your co-host, Adria Shea.
And welcome back to Attract It with Ease. Hi, Adria. How are you tonight?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm really good. Why don't you tell me what you're grateful for today?
I am grateful that the gyms are back open where I live, even with COVID. And so I can work out now with weights. I don't have any weights at home besides a small set of dumbbells. So we do mask when we go to the gym, but we have, I'm tripping over my words already. We have access to the machines, the free weights, and I'm thrilled.
I want to know, is the shower open at your gym? Can you shower at your gym?
You know, I think I probably could. I've never gone into the shower area, but I do walk through the locker room for another reason, and I have not seen anything saying that the showers are unavailable.
Oh, interesting. I'm just wondering because, as you know, showering is a situation for me with my tiny house. And so we used to shower at the gym, and our showers are closed here. So I was curious where you're from, if the showers are open. But how exciting. I love that you get to go to the gym and work out. It's so much easier when you don't have to rely on what you have at home.
Yes, it's wonderful. I'm really thrilled. They have it, it's kind of marked off so that you are forced to be physically distant from other people.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe that applies to the shower area too or something. I don't know, but I'll have to take a look.
Yeah, let me know.
So that's my first one. My second one, I am grateful for automatic car washes.
Oh, yes.
We had a big snow here a while back, and it melted really quickly, but it left so much salt on my car that it's a disgusting mess. And for people that don't know, we salt the roads when it snows to lower the freezing point of the snow so the roads are less icy. So my car has been so coated in a thin of grimy salt that I've had multiple people comment on it. So today,
how rude.
I know. And it's not just me. I mean, we were all out there driving on the road the same day. But today I went to the automatic car wash, and I did not have to step outside my car and freeze to get my car nice and sparkling clean.
We live in an amazing time.
We really do. And, you know, I grumbled a little bit about having to pay $6 for my car wash. But now that I'm rethinking it, it was worth $6 to not have to stand in the cold and do it myself.
I have to agree with you there.
The third one is another modern convenience. And, you know, I used to say that I was lazy. I said that about the slip-on shoes. I'm reframing what I say. It's not that I'm lazy. It's that I like to be efficient and
yes,
conserve my energy for more important areas. So I'm really grateful. This actually, I'm realizing, probably has nothing to do with physical energy, but I'm grateful for wireless charging.
It is physical energy if you have to get up and find your cord or move to the cord because the cord's not long enough to reach where you're at.
That's true. I'm going to save those steps for when I'm walking in place in front of the TV at night or something.
I love it. Okay, so you are going to love my first one. You're going to die. And listeners, this is going to spend a little bit more time on gratitude than normal, but this is worth it, I promise. So Adria, last year, you and I did a visualization course with Mike Dooley, if you remember. And one of the things that we visualized was finding out that we had this long lost bank account with money in it that we had forgotten about. And do you remember us having a conversation about it afterwards? And I told you, I just really have a hard time wrapping my head around how can somebody forget about a bank account? Like, how would that even be a thing? Because if I had money in some account, I promise you, I'm remembering that I have money in an account. So this is something that we experienced and visualized last year sometime, and I laughed about. So this week, Dad sends me a text and says, call me when you can. So I call Dad and he says, Kayla, it's your lucky day. And I go, I love having a lucky day. And
he doesn't know
goes,
every day is your lucky day.
right? He has no clue that all days are lucky.
Dad,
but he
listen
says,
to the podcast.
He says to me, Kayla, you've probably heard of people who have bank accounts that they forget about and there's money in them. And then they find out about the money later. And I said, yeah, I've heard about that. And he goes, I'm calling you to let you know that you have a long lost bank account with money in it. What? And I'm like, shut up. How do you know? How is this even possible? He proceeds to tell me about some website that you can go check out, like like lost assets or resources or whatever.
Yeah.
And so he said, I went on there. I searched for me. I searched for Joanne, his wife. He said, and then I looked up different members of the family and your name came up. He's like, you actually have this bank account that with some money in it that's never been claimed and you just have to go claim it. So anyway, the shorter version of the story is it's only $28.
Wow, still, I'll take $28.
I didn't know I had. Yeah, I'll take $28 all day long. But it was so humorous to me because we had this experience of visualizing this bank account with lost money in it. And this has come true. This is a real thing. It actually happens to people. So that's what I'm grateful for, number one today. And I'm sorry it took so long, but I'm pretty excited about that.
It reminds me that you manifested money yet again.
Hey, I'm just really good at manifesting. I want others to believe that they're as good as I am, because if you can manifest $28 or how much was it last time? A $15 gift card. I promise you can manage 10, 20, 1,000, 200,000 times that. You just have to work on your beliefs. So that's number one for my gratitude. Number two is I'm so grateful for the ability to control my mindset. And that I know that I can do that because I'm going to fess up to something. I was in a terrible mood Monday and Tuesday of this week, like awful mood. I feel bad for Dan to have to even have been around me. Like I was so ornery. And then it dawned on me late Tuesday night that I was crabby. And I'm like, why am I being so mean? And why am I in such a bad mood? And why is this a thing? And I don't know. I just realized I have a choice to not be like this and I can flip it around. So Wednesday morning, I woke up, I set my intention that I was going to have a great day. I wasn't going to let anything get to me. I focused on I'm a money magnet and I put my intentions out there and I had an incredible day on Wednesday. I was in such a good mood. It was so good. I closed 2 sales that day. It was amazing. And I just thought, awesome. I'm so glad that I know that I have the ability to do that. It's literally just consciously making that choice. So I'm grateful for that information. And then number 3 is a shorter explanation. I'm grateful for my angel cards. And listeners, if you don't know what those are, they're kind of like tarot cards, but it's messages that are written as if they come from your angels. And it's all just positive thoughts. But ideally, you ask a question or you say something like, what message do the angels want me to hear today? Or you can ask a specific question if you need guidance on something. And then you shuffle the cards and you pull a card. And whatever message is on the card is the message that's supposed to be the answer to your question. And man, I pull one card a couple times a week, just a single card. And almost every time it's exactly what I needed to hear. And I'm so grateful for that. So if you don't know about angel cards, check into it. They're pretty cool.
That's awesome. I love those.
All right. So, Adria, episode 16 just released, and I re-listened to it and realized that you made a comment that I didn't really pick up on while we were recording. And going back and listening to the recording, I realized, oh my gosh, she said something that I really should have jumped on and addressed. And as I started thinking about it, I thought, wow, this could be a whole episode. So it's actually what I want to talk about this week. And that is, you said something along the lines of, I don't really know if I understand fully what my inner being is or how I'm supposed to hook up with it or how I'm supposed to be aligned with my inner being. And that's paraphrasing. I don't know exactly how you said it, but you made some reference to that. So, Adria, before we get into this topic, because I do want to clarify that and answer that question for you and our listeners, I think it's important to know because we've talked about it a few times, but I'm going to put you on the spot as usual. Tell me what your understanding of your inner being is, or what you think it means when we talk about that.
Well, I believe that who we are is bigger than who we are in this life and in our bodies. I believe that we've always existed on some level as consciousness. And so I think that aspect of us, that part of us, knows what's in our best interest and would never get flustered or stressed or depressed or whatever. So to me, am I on the right track?
There is no right or wrong
getting
answer.
Close.
Because
am I warm or am I cold?
You're totally on track. But here's one thing that I want to say as a disclaimer. I am not a god. I have no more information in this life than anyone else does. I'm figuring it out the same way everyone else is. And so my beliefs and your beliefs might be the same, they might be different, but the law of attraction is law. And that's what we're talking about is the law of attraction. And as we talk about pieces of it, there might be things that I say that you don't agree with or you don't buy into, but the way that the law of attraction works is pretty much undisputable. It's proven, science proves it. So there can be idiosyncrasies or semantics in some of the terminology or ways that we describe things like our inner being. You don't have to believe the same thing that I have to believe. So in that sense, I do think we believe a lot the same way because we were raised the same way, but it's okay if we don't believe the same things. We just really have to understand conceptually the concept of what is your inner being. And then we can talk about how we can be aligned with that. So you can continue. There's no right or wrong answer. I'm just curious what your understanding is or what you think of when I talk about being aligned with your inner being.
Well, that basically sums it up for me. I think that there is a way to tap into what is true and not contaminated by all the experiences of a lifetime and all the negativity that we pick up over the years. I don't feel like I'm describing this very well, but I feel like we all have these voices in our head that come from outside of us. And our inner being is separate from all of those things.
Good. I think you worded that really well, especially for being put on the spot. So I'm going to explain kind of my understanding of what your inner being is, but I also want to, without getting in a full-on discussion about religion, talk about how no matter what you believe, you can still believe that you have an inner being. So we were raised in a Christian household, and we were raised to believe that we had a spirit before we came to this earth, and that spirit then inhabited our bodies. So I realize some listeners out there also believe that, and some listeners are like, no way, I don't believe that at all. And that's okay. But if that is your belief, if you believe that you have a spirit that is currently inhabiting your body while you're alive on this planet, then your spirit would essentially be that inner being. And when you think of your spirit comes from a place of good. It comes from a place of, I don't know if righteousness is the right word, but the way that you would think of God or righteousness, it's everything is pure, everything is whole, everything is from a positive place. You would never say that God is from an evil or negative place. And so when you think of your spirit in that relation to God, that would be that same sort of connection. So that's one way to look at your inner being. But we all, as humans, know that we have this voice going on in our head constantly. When we're not having a conversation outwardly, there's always a conversation inwardly. And so we know we have this voice. And so when you think of this voice inside of you, you have to think, okay, who is that voice and what is behind the voice? What's controlling that voice and those thoughts that are taking place in my head? And the answer to that question, whatever that answer is, That's your inner being. The consciousness behind the voice that's going on in your head, that's your inner being. Now, that voice often has negativity, like you said, Adria, because there's these filters that come in through our life experience that cause us to think negative things. We look in the mirror and we think something negative. Oh, I'm looking old. Oh, I need to lose weight. Those sorts of things go on in the conversation in our head. That doesn't mean that our inner being is feeling that, but it's the filter that comes through in our thoughts. But the consciousness that's there, that's controlling that conversation, that's giving us that conversation in our head, that's our inner being. So even if you don't believe that you have a spirit or a soul, or that you existed before this life, or whether or not you believe you'll exist after this life, it's undeniable that we have a voice in our head, correct? Would you agree with that?
Yes.
If you were going to tell me, no, I have no idea what you're talking about, I would have been really weirded out right now.
I was going to say, I'm glad it's not just me that has voices
Yes,
in their head.
Voices. Well, that's a whole other conversation if there's multiples in there. But there's a constant conversation going on in our head. And so for me, that's kind of the easiest way to describe it is it's the consciousness behind that. It's not the voice, because the voice is going to say negative things because we think negative things all the time. But the consciousness, whatever's controlling that voice. And it's like when we die, our body's still here, but we're not here. So then there's the conversation of, did we go anywhere? Did we not? Are we dead? That's a whole other conversation. We're not getting into those kind of beliefs, but we know that there's something that controlled that body that's no longer in that body when we pass away. So whatever that piece is, that's our inner being. So when we talk about being aligned or being in alignment, and listeners, you've probably heard that phrase before, being in alignment. And what I've said a few times on the podcast episodes recently was, I've referred to Esther Hicks' meditation where I talk about being hooked up with your inner being. And I've referred to the phrase that when you're hooked up with your inner being, the words that come out of you will always be the perfect words at the perfect time, in the perfect place, with the perfect person. So that's the reference I think that I was making in podcast episode 16, where Adria then, when I asked you to comment, you said, well, I'm still kind of struggling on what all of that means. And that's where this whole idea for this episode came about. But when I explain your inner being as the consciousness controlling that conversation, or when I explain that it's the piece of your body that's no longer in it when you pass away, does that conceptually make sense? And no matter what someone believes, do you think our listeners will agree that there's that element somehow, somewhere in us?
Yes. Yes, okay. I think that's undeniable.
So let's talk about a soul or a spirit, and let's talk about those factors for a second so we can kind of understand who our inner being is, because we know it's this intangible thing, or consciousness or whatever. I don't even know what exactly it is, but let's talk about the elements of that, because let's talk about like a child when it's born. Before a child has exposure to its environment, what do you think their personality would be like if a child could talk, like on its first day of life? And I'm not talking about what would they talk about. I'm just saying, like, what do you think their personality would be like?
Full of wonder, free from any negativity or criticism, coming from a place of pure love.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because that was a piece I was looking for, was love. I think that is who our inner being is. It's removing all of the filters, removing all of the negativity. It's just at our purest form. I think we really are love. I think, and I don't think that that's all we are, but I think that is internally in all of us. I think we are all very positive and loving, and then we're taught to be different. We're taught to exclude. We're taught to criticize. We're taught to have judgment. But I think at our core, those are things that are not instilled in us. They're learned behaviors and learned ideas. And so when we talk about being hooked up with our inner being, it's taking all of those filters away, including the way we think about ourselves and the conversations we have about ourselves. It's getting rid of all of the best way I can say it is even thoughts, and just starting with that pure unconscious like idea of not knowing that you're not a good cook, not knowing that maybe you struggle with spelling, not knowing that you need to lose 20 pounds. It's all of these pieces of who am I at my core? If I was most loving towards everyone and towards myself, if I didn't judge myself, if I didn't add these extra filters, who would I be and how would I behave? Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Yeah. So when we talk about being hooked up with our inner being, we're talking about trying to be that person, trying to approach life and other people and ourselves without the filters, trying to be completely just authentic. And that's probably the best word that I can put out there. Like, who are you authentically when you don't judge yourself and when you don't judge anyone else, and when you don't care about what anyone else thinks? We talked recently about, how we're constantly looking for feedback from others. But if we don't care, if you just were completely authentically you and you went out into the world and you just did not have a care what anyone thought about you and you didn't judge anyone else, what would that feel like? What would that be like? For me, it's easiest to kind of imagine what that must feel like by picturing what it's like when I go out into nature. For example, when I go camping, if I'm by myself, if there's nobody around, if I'm just absorbed with nature and there's no one to have a conversation with, so no one for me to judge. I don't have to worry about what they're thinking about me. I'm not thinking about myself. I'm not looking at social media. It's all turned off and I'm just appreciating where I am and I'm loving being in the moment. And personally, I love camping. And so for me, camping just feels so incredible. When I think of how I feel when I'm camping, to me, that's kind of what it feels like to be connected to your inner being or to be completely authentic. So, Adria, when I explain it in those terms, as far as like your inner being, can you relate to that feeling of being able to be completely authentic and shut off all of the filters that we've learned throughout our life?
I have had a few experiences, primarily when I've been out in nature, like you said, also on occasion when I'm deep in a meditative state.
Okay. Yeah. I can see that, how that could be true too. And especially if you're great at meditating. Yes, that's exactly it. So when we're talking about the conversation of like being in alignment and hooking up with your inner being, that's really what we're seeking, is that feeling, the removal of all judgment, the removal of all filters, the removal of the need for feedback. We don't care what anyone else is thinking about us. We're just completely being our most authentic self. And to be able to do that, not just in nature, but when we're actually out in the world talking to other people, that's the goal. The goal is to always be in that state, to not care what anybody thinks about us, to be completely and utterly ourselves, to not judge anyone else, and to only project love on other people, to just come from this place of pure goodness and to be that person. To be able to emit that is where we are completely who we are at our core. And we are rarely there. And when we are, it takes practice to stay there. And so that's when we talk about being in alignment, or when we talk about being hooked up with our inner being, we're talking about staying in that state of just pure authenticity, that is love, that is positivity, that is goodness, that is just authentic. And so to be able to have a conversation with that, imagine going into a job interview and not caring what they have to say or what they think, not caring about, oh my gosh, did I wear the right thing? Did I say the right thing? Did I say too much? Did I say too little? To just go in and be 100% authentically you and realize, look, if they don't like me at my purest core self, then it wasn't right. And I'm okay with that. It wasn't the right fit. And that's fine. To be able to have that attitude, that's being hooked up with your inner being. And it's not just the mindset of, oh, I'm going to be fine either way. It's not like convincing yourself of that or talking yourself into that. It is truly at your core, just being fine. Like, look, if they don't like me, my pure self, if they don't like who I am, then it's not the right fit. And I don't want it anyway. And just being okay with that and the ease of just letting it go. That's being hooked up with your inner being. Does that explain a little bit better for you, Adria, as far as when I've talked about it in the past, that when you're hooked up with your inner being, the words that come out of you are always the perfect words at the perfect time, in the perfect place, with the perfect person? Does that feeling make a little bit more sense?
Yeah, it does. Are you going to explain to us the how?
Yes.
How to do that? Perfect.
Yes, I am. And that was where I was going to go next. So thank you. That was not even pre-planned, but that was where I was going next with this. And we won't spend too much more time on this, but now that you kind of have an understanding of like, okay, that is who my inner being is. My inner being is the consciousness behind the voice going on in my head. And now I need to turn off the voice, the negativity of the voice. I need to just be completely authentic, completely myself, completely loving. So the way that you get hooked up with your inner being is, number one, controlling our thoughts, turning off the negativity. Number two, controlling what we put into our mind, because what we put in our minds is what comes out of our mouth. What we read is what we repeat. What we watch is what we think about. And I mean, you can all experience or relate to this experience, is what I'm trying to say, that you'll see something or you'll hear something that is incredible or amazing or funny. And the next thing we do is turn around and tell someone else about it. You'll see a commercial that was so funny and you go to work and you say, oh, did you guys see that commercial on the Super Bowl or whatever? Or you saw a meme and so you send it to someone else because it's hilarious. Or you heard a story that was inspirational, so you tell someone that you know would totally appreciate that. That's what we do. That's how we communicate. But if we control what we're taking in, we're also controlling what we're putting out. So put in the positive, put out the positive. That's a piece of it. But really, at the end of the day, the best way that you can be aligned with your inner being is conscious effort and intention. We've talked about intention before, but it is choosing to shut everything else off. It's just like the activity of deciding to meditate. You can sit down and say you're going to meditate and then not be able to turn off the conversation. And that's where people struggle with meditation, is you still have this conversation going on in your head. But when you're committed to meditating, you focus on turning off the conversation. You focus on just releasing everything else and just settling into this state of almost nothingness. And it's a practiced behavior, but it is the same kind of thing with getting hooked up with your inner being. It's number one, recognizing, what does that feel like? So finding that experience of when you are hooked up, what did that feel like? And then try and recreate that emotion whenever you can. And when I say that emotion, maybe emotion isn't the right word. Maybe it's feeling, but feeling and emotion are somewhat interchangeable. It's when you are your most authentic self, when you don't care about what anyone else thinks and you're not judging other people, and you're just so full of love and happiness and joy, and just life is incredible and you're so grateful. What does that feel like? And just chasing that emotion, chasing that feeling constantly. So I know that that all sounds like feel good talk. And so it's like, well, how do you do that? And honestly, that kind of leads me into our action item for listeners, because I think if you go through this action item, it will help you start to learn, what does it feel like and how do I get there? And then it's literally putting the practice in, because it is a practice thing, and it is trying to understand how to get there and then focusing on staying there. It's a conscious thing you have to do, because we'll just constantly be moved out of it, because naturally we have negative thoughts, and naturally someone's going to say something that at some point that's going to upset us, and naturally someone's going to cut us off while we're driving and it's going to bother us, and naturally these things occur, and it will take us out of that state of alignment. And so it's just like steering a ship or driving your car, where you have to make these adjustments and move back and move back and move back. So it's practice. That's how you get there, is practice. But our action item for the listeners is to take a day, pick a day, a time, a day that you have some extra time. Take 10 minutes, just 10 minutes. And I'm going to recommend that you set a timer on your phone so that you don't fall asleep, so that you aren't having a conversation in your mind of, oh my gosh, how long has this been? Has it been 10 minutes? Has it been over 10 minutes? No, set a timer on your phone for 10 minutes and wait till the bell goes off, wait till the timer goes off. And until it goes off, you're in this. And what I want you to do for those 10 minutes is close your eyes and try and feel that inner self, that peace. And what I mean by that is try and shut off all the negative thoughts. Try and turn off all of the filters. And it doesn't mean don't have a conversation. I'm not asking you to meditate. What I'm asking you to do is have some bit of a conversation mentally with yourself of, who am I authentically? Who am I at my core? If I didn't care what other people thought about me, who would I be? How would I act? What does that feel like? And once you kind of get an idea of what that would feel like, then we've talked about visualization. Maybe go through kind of visualizing being that person, going out into the world and talking to someone that normally you would be, really concerned about what they're thinking of you, and imagining yourself having a conversation with this person and not caring anymore. Maybe picture that job interview where you're just completely free and it's like, hey, here's who I am. I own it. Like, love me or don't. I don't care. Here's who I am. But take 10 minutes to try and put yourself into the mindset of, who am I when I'm fully loving, fully accepting, and fully authentic. And when I say authentic, it's like, who are you at your core? What do you love to do? What makes you happy? If you didn't care about anyone else's opinion, how would you behave? How would you act? And I don't mean how would you act as in like, who would you tell off if you didn't care what they would think? No, you're not thinking about the negative things. It's not the judgment on anyone else. It's just like, if you were just purely yourself, imagine opening your chest up and just pouring your heart out to the world. Like, here I am, love me. This is who I am. I want everyone to know. I don't care what you know. I don't care if you know my secrets. I don't care if you know my past, my history, whatever. This is who I am, and I own it. There's this piece of power behind it. There's this piece of just pureness, of happiness, of joy. And it's so wonderful. And I promise you, if you can just grasp what that feels like, you can then work mentally on getting back there. Once you know what it feels like, you can chase that emotion. And it is seeking it out. It's, how do I get back there? And you get back there from turning off the negative thoughts. When you have it, turn it around, changing your beliefs about yourself. Stop saying things like, I'm lazy, and change your verbiage around and say something like, well, I'm efficient. I'm not lazy. I'm efficient. And I appreciate that about myself. It's those conversations that help keep you closer to that state of alignment. And it's all the things that we've been talking about. But I think it's important that people understand what we mean when we say that. But number two, understand that this is not based off of your spiritual beliefs. This is not based off of anything other than understanding that there is something inside of you, whether it's energy, whether it's a spirit, whether it's a soul, whatever it is, That's your inner being. And that inner being comes from a place of goodness. And you can be that person. You can be connected. And when you feel bad, the reason that you feel bad is you're not hooked up with your inner being. That's the only reason you ever feel bad, because you're out of alignment from this thing that is only good and only pure. And when you're only good and only pure, but you're having negative thoughts, they're in contrast from each other. And as long as you're in contrast, you're going to feel bad. But when you feel good, you are hooked up. You are that person. And so that's my encouragement. That's my action item for our listeners is take 10 minutes, try and connect with it, try and feel what it feels like, set a timer, spend 10 minutes. I'd love to hear how that goes for you. Adria, I want you to take this challenge. Will you accept my challenge and take 10 minutes to hook up with your inner being?
I will. I'm excited about it. I love this idea.
Awesome. So that leads me now to our winner from last week. We do have another winner for a bracelet. We have a new review that was left on Podchaser from, hopefully I say this right, I think it's Vishal. Vishal left us a short but very sweet review. And Vishal, you are our winner of a theme bracelet. So if you will send us an email at hello@attractitwithease.com, send us your address and your theme word for the year. We'll make your bracelet and we'll send it out to you. Adria, would you like to remind our listeners as to what I'm talking about with theme bracelets and winners?
Yes, each week this year, we are going to draw one name from people that have submitted reviews on any of the platforms that we are streaming on. And the winner will receive a custom bracelet with their theme word of the year.
That's right. A custom bracelet with your theme word. And these are unisex, so men or women can wear them. We have examples of them on the website, attractitwithease.com, if you want to see what they look like. And once again, for our listeners, if you're new and you have not listened to the first 10 episodes, those are our Jumpstart module. They are a series of 10 episodes that each have action items to help you jumpstart your ability to manifest the life of your dreams. So download the first 10 episodes, listen to those, and you can go to our website and download a free workbook that will help walk you through those 10 action items. And like I said, help you jumpstart your happily ever after. So Adria, do you have any questions or comments you want to add to our content this week?
No, I'm very excited about this week. I feel like it's really, once I go through this experience, I feel like it's really going to help me just figure out my direction from here.
I'm glad. I'm really glad. I am glad that Adria is doing this podcast with me because she brings in a whole perspective of questions that I don't even think about because, like I said, I've been studying this for so long. I forget the questions that I had in the beginning, and it's nice to have her perspective. And so I think listeners appreciate, Adria, the things that you have to say. So thank you for making that comment on episode 16 so that we could address this for our listeners. But I'm looking forward to talking to everyone next week. Thanks for joining me, Adria. Have a wonderful night.
You too. Take care.
Bye-bye.